Hello, I'm Dr. Howard. Today we're going to talk about how much protein we should be eating. There's a PDF file that accompanies this talk, and I suggest that you, when you finish all the other talks in this series being presented today, go back, pull the PDF file, and come back and listen to this again. Or skip this section and then come back with the PDF, because you're going to want to take a look at it while I talk and while you follow what I'm saying. Because we already talked about why you should not be eating too much protein. And the question comes in, how much protein should I eat? That's a good question, because it's a lot less than most people think. On this PDF file, if you'll turn to the first table, which is the next page after the introduction header, it tells you how much protein you should be eating for the day, but it tells you in funny units. Egg equivalent units, 6.28 grams of protein is an egg equivalent unit. Now, why that? Craziest thing you ever heard, right? Well, it's not quite that crazy. Most people don't know what a gram is, and 6.28 grams is just something you don't know about. Most people round it off to 6 grams, but it's 4 of those eggs would give you an extra gram of protein. That is significant, or it can be anyway for some people. And so I figured that people know what an egg is. And a large egg, the average size, ideal size, large chicken egg, is 6.28 ounces of protein. And I said, okay, everybody knows what an egg is, knows approximately how big a chicken egg is. And we're going to call protein in egg equivalent units. It makes it very convenient because not everything is in all your proteins in meat, cheese, fish, and nuts. You got a lot of protein in vegetables. Everything has protein. Even fruit has protein. Orange has some protein. Not a whole lot, but it has some. And it has to be counted. When you're figuring out what you need, you really don't want to overdo it. I've gone on over that why. 4.3 ounces of collards has as much protein as a half an egg. That's a lot of protein. 1.35 ounces of black beans has as much protein as a half an egg. And I suggest, I'll check, but I believe that's cooked black beans, black turtle beans. In fact, I'm sure it is. And so you look at the table, it gives you your height, it gives you your activity level, and tells you about how many equivalent eggs a day you would need. Well, you say, why don't I just eat the eggs? Well, you can eat the eggs, you just have all protein, and you're going to do yourself in eventually. You're going to hurt yourself. But in the next page, if you eat 3 meals a day, that's not a whole lot of protein. The protein from 3 eggs would be for a person prime of life, typical activities, 5 foot 6 inches tall, 3 1/3 eggs worth of protein, eggs equivalent, for somebody 6 feet tall. That's not a lot. And so if you're eating a meal, maybe 1/3 of that will come from your meat or cheese or whatever, and the rest is going to come from your vegetables. Grains have a lot of protein. They really do. They just have a lot more carbs. However, something like pasta made from einkorn flour is balanced. You don't have to eat that with anything except itself and something to give you soluble fiber. And we'll go talk about soluble fiber in another talk. It's very important, and it's enough to warrant a short talk. If you have what's called a carb limit, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you might need 4 meals a day. And there's a table for that. I have a carb limit. I have diabetes because of my insulin resistance. If I eat more than 50 grams of carbs at a meal, my blood sugar goes crazy. If I eat less than 50 grams of carbs total, my blood sugar is fine. So my blood sugar is going to go crazy if I eat too much. So I'm not going to eat too much. I'm going to eat an extra meal during the day. And there's another table in here that you might find useful. It says, well, if I eat this much protein, how much carbs do I need to balance it? So I have protein-carb balance so that I can minimize the effect that it would have on my blood sugar. Normal healthy kid is going to be able to eat just about anything they want, and the blood sugar is going to stay pretty stable. It's not going to go sky high like mine would. But when they start getting damaged, it starts going sky high, and this is what's happening with our kids these days. For some reason, they're getting damaged. And once it starts not controlling itself, when you stress it by putting too much carbs or too much protein, you have to do it manually. And so this table sort of tells you how to do it manually. We've already said why you don't want too much protein. And if you don't have a lot of excess protein and you have not a lot of carbs because they have to balance this non-excessive amount of protein, then you're going to have to get your calories from someplace else, and that's going to be fat. And we're going to have a whole talk on fat probably next week. But meanwhile, we have some tables in here telling you how many calories you're going to need to get from fat. And it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. I'm going to suggest you use coconut oil. It has the minimum, it has the omega fats, which are inflammatory and non-inflammatory fats. The inflammatory ones, the omega-6 fats, start a fire inside your body. It's called inflammation. It's supposed to do that to clear out the debris, to put new cells in, to make changes so that you can make repairs. You need the omega-3 fats to go put the fire out. So it's taken away the damaged cells, and you now lay down new healthy cells. And so we need them, but we don't need them in great amounts. When you need maybe 50 or 100 or 200 omega-6s to start a fire at a meal, you don't need 2,000 or 10,000 of them. You'll have a volcano. You'll burn the whole stadium down. And this is what we're doing. And so we're going to talk about that in another talk. You just want to know that we want everything in moderation. But you're going to need fat, and there is healthy fat. Well, there's one healthy vegetable fat, and it's not olive oil. It's coconut oil. And if you have grass-fed cattle, the fat from grass-fed steers, it's called beef tallow, is healthy because there's an omega-6 fat, CLA, that happens to be healthy. It's a trans fat, no less, and it's healthy, and because it's anti-inflammatory. And we have other anti-inflammatory foods, and we have butter from grass-fed cows that has CLA. But you also have foods like turmeric, and they've been used for centuries. They're used in cultures where they might have inflammatory foods, have a little bit too much omega-6s in the diet, and these spices like turmeric, garlic. There's a lot of spices. The normal seasonings we use in cooking, most of them have anti-inflammatory properties. At the cooking levels, you take too much of them, and then some of them lose their properties. They don't cook. They're not as good. They cook, but you put too much in, it's not as good as less. The normal cooking levels they found, like for rosemary, are very healthy. And they lose their properties if you use too much. And they don't have the properties if you don't have enough. So you want to just use normal amounts you would in cooking, and that's correct. That's the amount you should be using, and you get all the advantages of all the nice things that they have. So the nice things about trying to use fat to give you the proper amount of calories is it's so caloric dense that you don't have to make changes. You want your weight to go down, it's a little too high, even if it's a lot too high. Just drop a tablespoon a day out of fat out of your meal. Don't cut way back. You're going to need a lot of fat in order to keep your calories up, because you're not going to get them from your protein and carbs. They need to be in balance, and you don't want to hurt yourself by too much protein. You're going to use fat. And there's been a big smear campaign in this country about using fat. Don't use this fat. It's bad for you. Use these fats. Turns out those fats are terrible. Coconut oil is about the safest fat you can use. It's healthy. It protects you against infections. It can be used by people with gallbladder problems because it doesn't hit the gallbladder. It doesn't hit the small intestines. It goes, you eat the coconut oil, it's absorbed right from the stomach, goes into the bloodstream, goes to the liver where it's needed. It's good for your brain. You give coconut oil, extra virgin coconut oil, to people who are starting to show signs of Alzheimer's, and guess what? The signs of Alzheimer's go away. They just need to eat a tablespoon or two, just straight, a couple times a day, and they do much better, and they think much clearer. And people who are starting to get signs of cognitive decline, like you go to the refrigerator and don't even remember why you came into the room. It doesn't happen too often, but it does every once in a while. Start eating some coconut oil. You'd be surprised. A lot of those problems will just disappear. So it has all sorts of beneficial effects, and if you will cook with it. By the way, you can't do high temperature cooking with extra virgin coconut oil. You can boil stuff in it. You can do some low temperature saute even. High temperature, you're going to need a specially treated coconut oil. It doesn't have any flavor anymore. If you have to do that, and I use it for sauteing too, because I never know when it's going to get a little too hot accidentally. Get the expeller pressed, and you're going to probably be in good shape. Anyway, I have some tables telling you how much calories. If you've balanced your carbs and protein, then you just need to add the fat calories. Now, fat calories isn't just from the fat. The fat calories we're counting in these tables are total for the meal. Because the foods, when I add the carb calories and the protein calories together, it's for a food, I'm not counting the fat. I don't know how much fat is in that piece of food. I have an idea how much might be there. But when you're not exactly sure. Don't have to be. You just take some fat, use approximately the right amount, watch if your weight's going up or down to check your weight. Just weigh yourself every morning with about the same amount of clothes on. It's very simple. Check your lowest weight for the week. Next week, check your lowest weight for the week. See if the lowest weight for the week is going up or down. If it's going up, drop off a tablespoon of fat out of the amount that you're cooking with and everything else. If it's going down and you're happy, let it go down. When you want to level off, add a little more fat. If it levels off too soon, take a little more fat off. It's very simple. You just reach in, scoop out some fat, drop it in the pan when you're cooking. Make sure you get the fat. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. You have to have the fat when you're keeping a minimum amount of protein and you're balancing your carbs to that minimal amount of protein. You don't want carbs to normally go below 120 grams of carbs a day. Most of the time, you're not going to have a problem. You will have a problem if you're going on a ketogenic diet. That requires very little carbs and lots of fat. The diet I'm talking about is going to be 50 to 80% fat. Ketogenic diet is a very special diet that they're using to cure cancer. At least that's what I've been told. I can't say it's a cancer cure. It doesn't cure all cancers. There's some that are resistant to it. Talk to your doctor if you have a problem. But you have to have about 80% of your calories from fat, somewhere between 10 and 40% or maybe 50% of your grams, 10 or 50 grams of carbs a day. I know people on this diet, they're down at 10 grams of carbs a day, some of them. They do very well. Their body switches from burning carbs to burning fat, and it works. It's not something I recommend. Most people don't realize they got to keep their protein down to a minimum and really live off the fat. And your body's perfectly capable of doing it. Long term, I don't know. I recommend my diet for long term. My diet's not for everybody. I have a friend who lives on fruit. My diet would make him sick. He knows that. His diet would make me sick. We both know that. But we do very well. I know people on a ketogenic diet. They do very well. I've talked to people on a blood type diet. They seem to do pretty well too. A lot of people don't do well on that diet. There's a diet for everybody that people are going to do well on. But what you're not going to do well on are the diets that the food industry has been pushing in this country, and the diets that the medical profession's been pushing, because they don't want to look at food combinations. They want to look at just individual foods. And some of the doctors, like Dr. McCullough, are doing great in what they're teaching. And some of the doctors, well, I have some questions about what they're teaching. Let's put that. But most of them don't know any better. That's another topic. So anyway, there's a final table in this download, and that shows a whole bunch of foods, how much of each of those foods has a half an egg of protein, so that you can get some idea of what you're doing. And in the final column there, it tells you the average carbs, it tells you typical fiber, soluble fiber, and we're going to have a little talk on that. And it tells you something called UNBC, which is a table, an index I came up with called unbalanced carbs. And the negative are the protein donors, the positive are the carb donors. You balance them, and the numbers go in proportion to the particular food. So if a given food, let's say 0.6 ounces of raw cashews has a UNBC of -6, then 0.3 ounces of cashews would have a UNBC of -3. 3.3 ounces of Brussels sprouts has a UNBC of -3. Brussels sprouts are a protein donor. 3.3 ounces of Brussels sprouts has as much protein as 0.6 ounces of cashews, which is, they have a half an egg worth of protein. You would balance that. Well, let's see. 3.6 ounces of cooked white sticky rice has 10 and 3/4 UNBC. It can balance quite a bit of cashews or quite a bit of greens. You wouldn't expect white sticky rice to be good for you. Well, it is. We're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about soluble fiber, because it turns out if you have enough soluble fiber, it doesn't matter if you've taken the good stuff, or what we think is the good stuff, out of the rice. Turns out that white rice may be healthier than the brown rice these days. And we talk about that when we talk about the soluble fiber too. Meanwhile, God bless you. See you tomorrow.